All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a massive challenge in the modern data workflow, and that is categorical data encoding. Getting this right is absolutely crucial for building machine learning models that you can actually trust. Because think about it, before an algorithm can detect patterns, make predictions, or give us any real insights, it needs the data in a format it can literally calculate. Human-readable text? Great for us. But machines? They strictly need numbers. Bridging that gap effectively is exactly what we're focusing on today. So, let's get into it.
Now imagine you're looking at a data set, and you've got a color field, say red, blue, and green. If you just slap a 1, 2, and 3 onto those colors, well, you've instantly got a problem. Because algorithms are purely mathematical, right? They inherently try to calculate differences in magnitudes between inputs. So a model might look at that and falsely infer that green, coded as a 3, is mathematically greater than blue, coded as a 2. Or even worse, it might assume green is exactly 3 times as much as red. And obviously, none of that natural order actually exists in the real world. So this brings us to our essential question. How can categories be represented numerically without inventing false relationships?
Over the next few minutes, we're going to build a really practical mental model to solve this exact visual puzzle. We'll take what often feels like a messy abstraction and break it down into a reliable, step-by-step system. By the end of this, you'll be able to trace the entire main process, apply it to your own work, and, most importantly, recognize exactly where the results of your data pipelines need some serious caution.
Okay, let's dive into this. At its core, categorical encoding simply maps labels to numerical representations. But, and this is key, it's not just about assigning random numbers to text. The encoding method you choose has to deliberately preserve the underlying nature of the data. For instance, categories can be nominal, meaning they have no inherent order, kind of like our red, blue, and green colors. Or they can be ordinal, which implies a specific logical rank, like small, medium, and large. On top of that, your method has to account for whether those categories are super frequent, incredibly rare, or tightly associated with a specific target outcome. Preserving those original traits, that is the secret to accurate modeling.
Encoding is such a make-or-break part of model design because the representation determines which relationships an algorithm can easily learn. Think of the representation as the literal lens your model uses to view the world. We are basically trying to translate human context into algorithmic logic. So the really important distinction here isn't just staring at the label itself. Instead, we have to ask, what information enters the process, what mathematical operation changes it, and what kind of numerical output comes back out. Keeping those specific parts separate is what turns an abstract idea into a solid systematic workflow.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Here is the core mechanism of that system, broken down into 4 essential steps. First, we type, meaning we identify whether the categories actually have a meaningful order. Next, we encode. We choose the method. Just to give you an idea, one-hot encoding creates new binary columns. Ordinal encoding applies ranked numbers to sequential data. Frequency encoding replaces a category with its total count. And target encoding, that replaces a category with the average target value for that group. After selecting a method, we handle unknown. We fit our encoder on training data and explicitly dictate how totally new, unseen categories should behave in the future. Finally, we evaluate, checking for errors like sparsity or leakage. This entire path matters because your assumptions enter at multiple stages.
To really ground this theory in immediate, practical application, let's look at an illustrative example, the color field. We're going back to our colors to see exactly how text is converted into math without fabricating a fake hierarchy. Now, in a real-world project, you'd be dealing with far more records. We're talking maybe millions of rows of customer preferences, but the conceptual path stays exactly the same as this intentionally compact example.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Our initial nominal color field containing red, blue, and green gets transformed into 3 completely separate binary columns, is_red, is_blue, and is_green. This is what we call one-hot encoding. It gets its name because for any given record, only one column is hot, or active, with a value of 1, while the rest are cold with a 0. If a record is red, it gets a 1 in the is_red column and a 0 everywhere else. By giving each category its own binary column, the mathematical output is undeniable. We successfully express the structure we actually know and completely avoid fabricating artificial distance or ranking.
So why does this matter in your daily data workflow? Well, because you shouldn't just pick a technique just because it's popular. You use simple one-hot encoding for manageable nominal categories, you use ordinal encoding only when there's a highly defensible order, and you turn to complex encodings only when the scale truly demands it. A great decision rule is this: always match your method to the specific question, the available data, and the cost of error. To put that cost into perspective, imagine a medical model that misinterprets patient risk because a nominal category was accidentally ranked as ordinal. The cost there is incredibly high, right? So rigorous evaluation of your method is absolutely mandatory.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is it tackles a huge misconception head-on. A lot of people assume that simply converting text labels to integers is enough to get the job done. But a much more accurate view is this. Integer codes can create artificial distance and order where none belongs. Take a postal code, for instance. It shouldn't be treated as a continuous escalating number, even though it's literally made entirely of digits. If you calculate the average of two postal codes, sure, you get a mathematically valid number, but it's complete nonsense in reality. The encoding must always match the specific category meaning and the behavior you expect from the algorithm.
It's also vital to set some clear boundaries for responsible use here. The main limitations you're going to face are that high-cardinality categories, meaning ones with thousands of distinct labels, like unique user IDs, can create incredibly sparse features. A sparse feature means your dataset just becomes flooded with zeros, which makes it super difficult for models to find any real patterns. Also, target encodings can leak labels. Data leakage is basically when you accidentally hand the model the answer key during training, which completely ruins its ability to predict new data. And of course, unseen categories require explicit handling, otherwise your system might just crash. All these conditions require serious testing and human judgment.
So, the crucial point is this. Let's lock in a what, how, and when retention framework. What is categorical encoding? It responsibly maps descriptive labels to numeric representations so algorithms can actually process them. How does it work? Through a strict sequential process. Type, encode, handle unknown, and evaluate. And when do we use it? We always match the specific encoding method directly to the available data format, the natural structure of the categories, and the fundamental question we're trying to answer.
Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative question. Does your current encoding method genuinely express a known structure, or is it secretly fabricating a mathematical structure that isn't really there? I highly encourage you to go audit your own data pipelines with this exact question in mind, just to make sure your models are learning from reality and not from artificial artifacts. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.